I've always been the black sheep, overshadowed by my golden sister. They demanded I give my house to her, and even tried breaking in when I refused. I, Fiona, 45, work for one of the top IT corporations in Silicon Valley as a senior software engineer. I'm still trembling as I write this because of what just transpired with my family, but I need to tell my tale and get some outside viewpoint. My sister, Sarah, 38, was the golden child in my family, and I have always been the odd one out. Sarah was everything I wasn't, with her flawless blonde hair and endearing nature. I was the reserved one who liked to play with my chemistry rather than interacting with others. My parents never really made an effort to conceal their choice, and the difference between us was obvious from the start. I believe it's critical to recognize the pattern. Therefore, allow me to take you back to my early years. I won my first school science competition when I was 8 years old with orbital patterns included. I produced a functional model of the solar system. My teacher called my parents directly because she was so amazed. They should be proud, wouldn't they? False. Sarah had a dance recital, so they were unable to attend the award ceremony. Mom said, "But honey, Sarah needs us there. She gets nervous without us watching," as she arranged Sarah's hair. The pattern was established early on. Sarah's activities, no matter how insignificant, always took precedence over my accomplishments. I can still clearly recall my 10th birthday. For weeks, I had been hinting that I wanted a microscope. I ended up looking like a cupcake in a pretty pink frock instead. "But Mom, I hate dresses," I objected. She simply smiled and replied, "Nonsense, you look just like Sarah," which was a complete miss. The gap only grew further during middle and high school. While I lost myself in literature and experimental experiments, Sarah soared through school, thanks to her charm and good features. Because at least she's trying. Her C+ grades were praised, but my consecutive A's were anticipated and barely noticed. When I reflect back on the science fair incident from my senior year, it still hurt. I had been refining my sustainable biofuels project for months. It was the state science fair, not just a school competition, so I was shocked to hear, "First place goes to Laura," when the winners were announced. I tried to express my joy during supper that night, but Mom interrupted me in the middle of my sentence. She murmured absently, "That's nice, dear." And then she turned to Sarah. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper when he said, "Princess, have you decided on your prom dress yet? We need to start looking soon." Sarah's participation ribbons from dancing recital were on display in the living room, while the trophy I had received sat collecting dust on a shelf. I think the event with the college admission letter was when I finally realized that nothing I did would ever be good enough for them. I was thrilled to receive my acceptance letter and full scholarship to a top tech university. I waved the note as I dashed into the living room. "Mom, Dad, I got in, full ride and everything." Mom's eyes lifted from her magazine. "That's nice, dear." "Sarah, didn't you say you needed help picking out your prom dress?" And my moment of triumph was suddenly dismissed once more. My first taste of independence came in college, and it changed my life. All of a sudden, people recognized and even loved my love of technology. I pushed myself into computer science with a zest that even shocked me. I was flourishing in my new setting, while Sarah struggled through community college, more interested in parties than schoolwork. Sarah would complain, "College is so hard," when we occasionally spoke on the phone. "I don't know how you do it, Laura." I resisted the temptation to suggest that she may find it easier if she studied more and partied less. I simply shifted the topic and muttered some ambiguous encouragement instead. Sarah revealed to me during my sophomore year that she was engaged to her high school boyfriend, Mark, 42. As you might assume, their wedding was perfect. Yes, the same guy who previously asked me if science was like really hard and stuff. I stood there in a pink nightmare of a bridesmaid dress, forcing a smile for the pictures. Sarah was glowing, and Mark looked awkward in his tuxedo. During the reception, Mom whispered to me, "Isn't this perfect? This is what every mother dreams of for her daughter." I was hesitant to ask if she had ever dreamed of anything for me. After all, it was Sarah's day. As I focused on developing my IT job, Sarah's life appeared to be a straight-out script from our parents' fantasies. She revealed her first pregnancy within a year after getting married. 9 months later, Sophia, 8, came, and 2 years later, Kevin, 6. In the meantime, I was advancing professionally. I worked numerous weekends and late nights as a junior developer at a tiny business in the beginning. I was one of the few workers retained when the company was bought out by a big tech corporation. From middle management to senior engineer, team lead, and finally senior software architect, I climbed my way up the corporate ladder. My family had the same reaction to every advancement and accomplishment. That's nice, dear. Did we tell you Sophia got the lead in her school play? Or, just how lovely. Did you hear Kevin made the t-ball team? As Sarah and Mark bought new automobiles and went on lavish vacations, I lived frugally, saving every bonus and stock option. Last year, I was ecstatic to finally find my dream home, a stunning 4-bedroom house in a fantastic neighborhood. It had finally paid off after 20 years of hard labor. During our subsequent phone conversation, I declared, "Mom, Dad, I bought a house." The person on the other end of the line paused. "A house?" Mom said slowly. "Again, all by yourself?" "Yes, all by myself," I replied, my enthusiasm somewhat waning. "It's a great investment," and Mom stepped in and said, "But it's such a big house for one person. What will you do with all that space?" "I'll enjoy it, Mom. It's mine." "Well," she responded, clearly disapproving in her tone, "I suppose if that's what you want." "Oh, did I tell you Sophia lost her first tooth yesterday?" After I bought a house, the months that followed were hectic with work and getting settled. I immersed myself into the decor, making every space a representation of who I am. In order to focus on personal projects, I made the main bedroom my haven, the second bedroom my home office, the third my library, and the fourth my home laboratory. However, I began to observe a change in the dynamics of my family during this period. My parents stopped calling as often as they used to. There was a strange tension in their voices when they called. Then, Mom called last week. Mom said, "Laura, dear," in a sickly sweet voice, "we're having a family dinner next Sunday. You'll be there, won't you? We need to talk about something important." "We need to talk" frequently indicates that trouble is about to break out in my family. Nevertheless, nothing could have prepared me for that dinner's events. Mark kept cleaning his throat anxiously, while Sarah's children ran about screaming. "Laura," Dad remarked, clearing his throat after dinner, "we need to talk about your house." My hackle stood up. "What about my house?" "Well, you see, sweetie," he added, both of them looking at Mom. "We've been thinking, that big house of yours, it's really too much for just one person." "Dad, we've been over this. I like my house. It's mine." Mom jumped right in. "What your father is trying to say is that Sarah and her family need more space. The kids are growing, and their apartment is getting cramped." Sarah's sudden interest in her plate caught my attention. I asked, but I had a dreadful suspicion that I already knew where this was going. "And we think," Mom said in a condescending tone, "that since you're childless and single, you ought to give your house to Sarah and her family." My expectation was that someone would shout, "Gotcha," and let me know it was all a prank, but all I saw were faces full of anticipation. "You can't be serious," I said at last. "Now, Laura," Mom replied condescendingly, "don't be selfish. Sarah needs the space more than you do." "Selfish?" I asked again, raising my voice. "How is it selfish to want to keep the house I worked hard for and paid for myself?" Dad added, "It's your sisterly duty to help in times of need." I looked at Sarah. "And what do you have to say about this?" She eventually looked into my eyes and shrugged. "Well, it would be nice to have more space for the kids, and it's not like you're using all those rooms anyway." What I was hearing was unbelievable, as if I were the irrational one for not giving up my house. My own family was pleading with me to do so. "No," I firmly responded as I got to my feet. "Absolutely not. I'm not giving up my house." I heard Dad say, "Think about it, Laura. Family should come first," as I picked up my coat and made my way to the door. The repercussions. It has been a nightmare in the days since that terrible family supper. First, I ignored my parents and Sarah's incessant calls and messages. Then, the flying monkey struck. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my home and the decisions I had made in life. It was Aunt Beth who called first. "Your poor sister needs a home for her children, and you're living all alone in that big house. Shame on you." She interrupted me when I attempted to clarify that it was my home, purchased with my own funds. In my day, family helped family. We didn't hoard our resources like misers. The real kicker came next. "Well, if you're not going to use all that space, you should at least consider donating your eggs. It's not like you're using them anyway." I almost dropped the phone because I was so stunned. I was about to reply when she continued primly, "You're not getting any younger, you know." Tick-tock. Helen, my great aunt, left a voicemail. "Laura, dear, It's not too late to find a nice man and settle down. Then you'd need that big house. Your sister has a family. What do you need 4 bedrooms for? Your work. Uncle Ryan texted. A series of increasingly audacious messages continued to arrive. Every relative appeared to have a different take on my life decisions and how I ought to manage my possessions. To prevent getting more texts when I get home, I've started staying late at work. My phone is always buzzing with guilt trips and new judgments. Even though I've blocked a number of them, they continue to originate from fresh ones. But something feels different tonight. Call it paranoia or intuition, but I can't shake the uneasy sense that my family might try something out of the ordinary. Especially concerning was Sarah's final message. You'll see reason eventually, one way or another. Reddit, I need your advice. Am I being selfish, really? Should I risk being totally shunned by my family by standing my ground, or should I just give in to keep the peace? Above all, should I be concerned about Sarah's most recent message? First update. Since I first posted about my family attempting to coerce me into selling my house, 2 weeks have gone by. I am utterly disturbed by what transpired yesterday morning, and I must share this amazing news. I've spent the last few days working from home due to a severe cold, nothing major, just enough to satisfy my boss's demand that I take a break. I was on a video conference with my team at around 10 o'clock in the morning when I heard a sound that chilled me to the bone, someone attempting to open my front door. I initially believed I was dreaming, but then I heard the familiar jingle of keys and recognizable murmurs. After muting my phone and sneaking over to the front window, I was astounded by what I saw. My parents, Sarah, and Mark were on my porch, and there was a moving truck parked in my driveway. I caught them red-handed as I threw open the door. When they helped me move in last year, Mom was actually holding a set of keys. They must have made copies. Laura, Mom exclaimed, almost dropping the keys in the process. We thought you'd be at work. I couldn't help but ask incredulously. So you decided to break into my house? Sarah moved forward with righteous wrath, but at least Dad had the grace to appear ashamed. You're being completely unreasonable about this, Laura. We thought if we just took the initiative. More details that infuriated me were revealed at that point. Furniture had already filled half of the moving truck. Actually, they were going to move Sarah's family, and while I was absent, possibly at work, Sarah added, we were just going to wait for you to come home, as though that would help. I yelled, no, you weren't, and pointed to the truck. You were planning to move in behind my back while I was gone. At that moment, I saw movement on the other side of the roadway. Mrs. Baker, my neighbor, had her phone in her hand and was observing from her window. She mouthed police after catching my attention. I gave a grateful nod. I said, I've called the police, in a trembling but forceful voice. You wouldn't, sneered my dad. Your own family? The siren sounded as if at the exact moment when a police car arrived. My family's faces lost their color. 2 policemen came to observe the scene. One questioned suspiciously, glancing at the moving vehicle. Is there a problem here? Yes, officer, I responded, attempting to maintain a calm tone. These people were attempting to break into my home. Laura, exclaimed my mom. How could you? My family was examined by the officers. Is this true? The officer held up a hand as my father began to stutter forth an explanation. It was both exciting and upsetting what happened next. Sir, trying to enter a property without the owner's permission is a serious offense. I'm going to need to see some ID from everyone. The officers took pictures of the moving vehicle, recorded the duplicate keys, and obtained statements. They clarified that although they would not make any arrests this time, they would record the incident and charge anyone who tried to make an arrest again. Sarah glanced around as they were being let off. My land, you'll regret this, Laura. You'll end up old and alone. I sat down on my couch, trembling, after everyone had gone. However, the day was far from done. An hour or so later, I got a call from a surprising person. Aunt Grace, my mother's sister. Laura, she gently began, I heard what happened. There's something you need to know about why they're really after your house. I was astonished by what she told me. She apparently works at the bank where my family conducts business, and she has observed some quite alarming trends. In addition to living over their means with fancy automobiles and lavish holidays, Sarah and Mark are heavily indebted due to Mark's severe gambling addiction. For years, he has been surreptitiously depleting their accounts. However, things worsened a few years ago. My parents lost a lot of money in a pyramid scheme. They were going to move in with Sarah and Mark after they purchased my house, but they've been barely making ends meet. Grace clarified. I confronted your mother about it. That's why she stopped talking to me last year. I've been watching this train wreck happen in slow motion, and I couldn't stay quiet any longer. I can now see why their desire to acquire my house was so intense. All of them are in danger of going bankrupt. Not only did they desire my house, but they also required it as a source of income. The remainder of the day has been devoted to installing security cameras, changing my locks, and taking notes on everything, just in case. I'm also considering obtaining a restraining order. In order to have hard proof of everything, Aunt Grace has recommended that we engage a private investigator. She believes that there may be more to this narrative than what we now understand. Living in a horrible soap drama is how I feel. How did this become my life? Once we have additional information from the investigator, I'll provide another update. I feel secure in my home for the time being, but I can't help but wonder what other secrets my family may be keeping. I appreciate all of your help and guidance. I was even more in need of those security cameras than I had initially believed. Second update. I'm in complete awe of our private investigator, Brenda's, findings. I had underestimated the depth of this rabbit hole. Yesterday, Brenda met with Aunt Grace and me at a peaceful cafe that is not close to the places my family usually visits. The attempted home invasion appeared to be only the beginning of what she disclosed. Mark has been living two separate lives. Brenda not only verified his addiction to gambling, but she also discovered a 2-year-long affair with my cousin, Kim. While Sarah and my parents were struggling financially, he was spending money on weekend vacations, upscale hotels, and pricey presents. Brenda replied, "Look at these credit card statements," which included frequent expenses at the Grand Hotel, Tiffany's jewelry purchases, and weekend getaways to Las Vegas. They were all from the same places and matched Kim's social media posts. This is where it becomes even more twisted, though. The funds Mark spent on his extravagant affair, my parents contributed a large amount for what they believed to be a business investment. They had been lending him money. He was using it to finance his second life instead. Brenda also discovered proof that Mark opened a different Cayman Islands bank account. By pretending it was for a high-yield investment opportunity, he has been embezzling money from my parents' retirement account. Actually, he has been using it to keep up his affair with Kim and pay off his gambling losses. Brenda stated, "Your parents' retirement account has been nearly drained," as she passed over another paperwork. They've been living on credit cards, believing Mark's promises that a big return on investment is just around the corner. Brenda's discovery of emails between Mark and Kim about their scheme to use my property as collateral for a loan in order to hide their tracks before Sarah found out was the most startling revelation. Brenda clarified, "They intended to obtain a second mortgage on your home. The paperwork was already being prepared. They just needed to get physical possession of the property first. That's why they attempted the break-in. They weren't just trying to move Sarah and the kids in. They were racing against time to secure the house before their whole financial house of cards collapsed." Aunt Grace, who had been studying the papers in silence, interrupted. "There's more," she added in a strained voice. "Look at these transfer dates. They align perfectly with your Uncle Tim's business's supposed expansion dates." I was slammed by the implication like a truck. Kim's father, Uncle Tim, had been unwittingly using his business loans to Mark to finance his daughter's romance. I've made the decision to call a family gathering. My parents, Sarah, Mark, Uncle Tim, Aunt Betty, Kim, and all the other family members who have been bugging me about my house will be present. They are coming to my house, the house they attempted to steal, at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I will present all of this evidence with bank statements, hotel receipts, pictures, and email correspondence. Brenda has put together a thorough presentation of her research. Aunt Grace will be present to verify the bank account information. To make sure that things don't go out of control, I've even recruited security. You need to be prepared, Brenda cautioned me. When cornered, people like this tend to lash out. They might try to blame you for investigating or accuse you of destroying the family. I'm tired of being the family doormat, even though I know she's right. Everything is different tomorrow. I feel bad for bringing this to everyone's attention, especially Uncle Tim and Sarah. Both of them are also sufferers of this. However, I can't find it in my heart to be nice about this after years of being treated like a second-class family member and being forced to give up my house to cover for their falsehoods. The security cameras have been set up. The evidence is arranged. My family will discover tomorrow that the quiet, dependable sister they have been taking for granted has finally had enough. After the meeting, I'll provide another update. I have a feeling it will be explosive. I'm currently here in my home office, going over these records and trying to comprehend how the family that made me feel self-centered for keeping my house was actually going to use it to hide their own network of deceit and lies. After the heated family gathering, the dust has finally settled, but my life has taken a totally unexpected turn. I want to explain how everything transpired in the current situation. The altercation proceeded as Brenda had anticipated. The room exploded when I showed them the proof of Mark's financial schemes and affair with Kim. The security personnel had to restrain Uncle Tim after he lunged at Mark. Kim attempted to leave the room, but Aunt Grace barred the door, and Sarah broke down in tears. The best part was when I showed my ace card, which was recordings of Mark and Kim talking about how they were going to use my house as collateral for loans. My parents' faces became pale when they recognized the full scope of their alleged investment opportunity. In the aftermath, I made a firm move. I started by informing the ethics committee of Mark's business about his financial malfeasance. He was put on administrative leave pending investigation. Within 24 hours, he was fired. At the conclusion of the week, for breaking company finance regulations, additionally, his professional licenses were revoked. I then assisted Uncle Tim in starting legal action to recoup his business loans, using Brenda's proof. Mark had misrepresented the entire investment strategy, according to the damning paperwork. Although the matter was resolved out of court, Mark's remaining possessions were taken away. My parents had to come to terms with themselves after I reported the questionable activity. The bank opened an investigation into their accounts. All 5 of them, now jammed into a tiny rented apartment, just as they had intended to do in my house, after being forced to sell their home to pay off their debts. After learning of Mark's complete betrayal, Sarah filed for divorce. She attempted to apologize to me, saying she was unaware of his plans for my property, but considering that she actively participated in the attempted break-in, I don't think it's credible. In all of this, my connection with Drew, 50, whom I met at my neighborhood rock climbing gym, has been the most surprising development. He travels the world, taking pictures of endangered species for half of his time as a wildlife photographer. In contrast to my family, he recognized and appreciated my independence and job right away. We developed a relationship organically and without coercion. We support one another's goals while enjoying our independence, and he has a prosperous career in a home of his own. He put up his photography gear in my home lab last week, joking that the lighting was ideal for both my circuit board documenting and his wildlife photos. I now consider Aunt Grace to be my real family. Every week, we get together for supper and talk about everything from her crazy childhood memories to investing techniques. She shocked me last month when she disclosed that she had changed her will to name me as heir. She responded to my protest by saying, "You're the daughter I never had, Laura, the one who truly understands the value of hard work and integrity." Most of the remainder of the family has split up into different camps. It seems that Kim and Mark made an effort to keep dating, but as soon as the money stopped coming in, their romance ended. She has relocated to a different location, and he has accepted a position at a Nevada used car dealership, which is very different from his previous executive one. Sarah and my parents still make an effort to get in touch with me on occasion, mainly when they need money. I've blocked their phone numbers and told my attorney to take care of any correspondence. Their most recent attempt was especially pitiful. Sarah left a crying message stating that she and the children were going to be evicted. Aunt Grace then informed me that they had more than enough money for rent. They were merely attempting to mislead me emotionally once more. My career has seen the most satisfying transformation. I've been able to give my career my whole attention without the continual drain of family conflict. My firm just promoted me to Chief Technology Officer, something I might not have accomplished if I were still subjected to their emotional manipulation and incessant demands. I now consider my house to be my home. The area they once attempted to take has been transformed into a sanctuary by me. Modern equipment has been added to the home lab, and one of the bedrooms has been converted into a library and photography studio, where Drew and I work on our individual projects. Originally put for protection, the security cameras now primarily record wildlife in my garden. In order to record the family of foxes that have taken up residence beneath my deck, Drew has even installed a few specialist cameras. The fact that my house, which my relatives said was too big for one person, is now more loving and purposeful than they could have ever dreamed, is a lovely irony. I've discovered that family is about respect, understanding, and support for one another, rather than blood ties or duties. I've learned what true family looks like from Aunt Grace, Drew, and my close friends. They love me for who I am, rather than what they believe I should be. They support my decisions rather than criticize them, and they celebrate my accomplishments rather than downplaying them. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me along the way. I was able to resist being abused by my biological family because of your counsel and support, and to anyone experiencing similar familial pressure, keep in mind that despite expectations from family, you have the right to defend what you fought so hard to achieve. Despite what some people may think, my narrative isn't about retaliation. It's about establishing a life full of true love and respect and, at last, escaping poisonous family relationships. There are instances when the family you chose is superior to the one you were born into. I recognize the irony that my family lost everything in the end when they attempted to steal my house. But I gained a real family and a level of happiness I never imagined was possible. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.